Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and, in fact, available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. More likely, Ole Miss every single day. And thank you to everybody for helping make the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your Ole Miss morning show. That is really cool. That makes me really happy, and just I swell with pride every time I think about it. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm here with Tom Vanderford. Camp has started, Tom. And what do you think the storylines are this week?
Well, I'll get to that in just a second. I'd like to say something real quick.
Okay.
Everybody knows I'm from Corinth, and we lost a super Rebel fan recently, John Hardwick. He was a great Rebel. He was a Rebel encyclopedia. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Now let's talk football. Suntarine Perkins is probably going to end up starting somewhere. And that blows my mind. I mean, 5 stars are 5 stars are 5 stars. I know Tony Connor, played his freshman year. But everything I've heard is he's just, last year, I heard from one of the football players about Quinshon Judkins, said he's a grown man. He's the real deal. I'm hearing that about Suntarine too. So that's, hey, a good shot in the arm on defense, is always helpful, especially with the defensive woes we've had the past few years. And I'll be honest with you, this is just my opinion, but I think if Pete Golding's not your defensive coordinator, we don't get Suntarine Perkins.
Well, no, that's not true, because Pete Golding wasn't our defensive coordinator when we got Suntarine Perkins. It just kind of worked out that Pete Golding and Suntarine was able to mesh. But I think Chris Partridge was still the defensive coordinator whenever Perkins actually signed with Ole Miss.
Yeah, he may have been.
Yeah, but I see what you mean. He really likes Pete Golding.
Yeah, he likes Pete. So that's a big one. That's a big one. I think that I've said this before, the defense always is ahead in camp, and then the offense catches up. But if we can have a top 30 defense this year, that's the story.
Well, if we have a top 30 defense, they might lose one game.
Sir?
If they have a top 30 defense, they might only lose one game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll be in every game. I think that we're going to have a top 30 defense. Of course, I'm a homer. My perspective is definitely pro Ole Miss, but I just see our defense improving. People who follow football for any length of time realize that your safeties and corners are really only as good as your front 7 or 6 or whatever it is. You've got to get pressure on the quarterback. If you've got a corner covering somebody for 7-8 seconds, he's going to be wide open. So we've got to, it all starts up front. We got big kids. We got fast kids. We're deep. I like the 4-man front. I also like the fact that we have some speed that we can blitz with if we need to, and Suntarine and in Coleman. So I'm pretty excited about the whole thing. I'm just glued to everything I can get a hold of as far as Ole Miss goes.
Yeah, that's the way I am. I'm all just combing through Twitter. Is like, what does this person have to say? What does this person have to say? Yep. Just trying to find that little nugget of information that somebody else might not have. Honestly, this is the best time to be an Ole Miss fan. It just is.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's before the season. Our Rebels are undefeated, and most of us, I guess I could be considered a fair weather fan, are pretty pumped up about this roster, the depth. I know the schedule's rough, but we're really, really deep. We're favored in an overwhelming majority of our games. And that's pretty impressive. I think we're not favored in 3. I think LSU, Georgia, and Alabama.
Mhm.
and LSU's at home. We always play them tough at home. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Last year we were breaking in a new quarterback and there were problems. Alabama's doing that this year, and so is Georgia. So, they may be prolific 4 or 5 star quarterbacks, but they haven't earned their chops in the SEC yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting because there's so many things going on in other places that we had to deal with last year. We still won 8 games last year. It was a good team. There's a lot of talent on this roster. I had David Eckert on this morning, and he talked about the rumor was that Jackson Dart hadn't taken a second team step. That's not true compared to what David Eckert said. He said that 95% of the snaps were first team, but he had taken a second team rep or two this fall, but that's still not enough to even matter or register.
This is my opinion. I may be wrong, but when Spencer Sanders committed to us, the rumors on the interweb were that, he entered the portal and then he wanted to come back to Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State was like, no, we're good. And I think he was promised a chance to compete. But it sure does feel good knowing that if Jackson Dart goes down, you've got a multi-year starter in Division I football right up there with him. So, and we can't forget the 2 young guns. They're awesome too. So we have never, ever in my lifetime had this depth at quarterback. And the depth at running back. I can't wait to see the Oregon State kid. He's a transfer, right?
Yes, he's a grad transfer.
Yeah, so he's eligible right away. Mm-hmm. So then we're massively deep at running back. I mean, good grief, man.
Yeah.
How anybody couldn't be just super hyped about this season. I saw where we've already sold 40,000 season tickets. So the hype's real.
Yeah, and there's probably only 4,000 or 5,000 season tickets left that they can even sell. I think the record might be 47 or something like that. It feels like it's close. And people see 40,000 season tickets and they're like, we have a 64,000 seat stadium. That's not the whole story because there's still 10,000 tickets for students and a 5,000 visitor allotment. So 40,000 sold means that 55,000 has actually been sold. So there's about 9,000 left over that they'll use for party packs and individual tickets and things like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's a great time to be a Rebel, man.
Mm.
Yeah. Folks out there that are watching, get ready. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've heard over the course of camp?
I heard that Suntarine Perkins is the real deal. I heard that from a pretty reliable source. And I've heard that our receivers are in pretty good shape. Tight ends are looking good. And that's something that we didn't have that dimension last year. I think those 2 guys open up the middle. And I'm glad to have Priestcorn, man, because, we had some issues last year with Trigg. We had some, supposed attitude issues and injury issues and everything else. And it's good to have Priestcorn there. And we've got plenty of kids that can play the slot. But I think Priestcorn helps open the middle up. I really do.
Yeah. And, last year it's kind of funny to think about because we look at the players that they fixed these problems. And that was a big thing. And if Zach Evans does not get injured, we beat Alabama. Yep. I'm convinced that Ole Miss wins that game.
Yes. Oh, me too. Me too.
Same way with LSU. Now, the Arkansas and the State game, that was on that Auburn mess. I'm not even really paying attention to that. But those 2 games let you know that the talent was probably there. They just had a couple of depth issues that they couldn't overcome. So what did they do? Well, last year they went in with 3 running backs. This year, they're going to go in with 4 running backs. The tight end position, they counted on Michael Trigg, who got injured against Vanderbilt last year. And Casey Kelly, for better or worse, struggled. If I see him try to catch another pass on fourth down, I would probably lose my mind. But now Caden Priestcorn and Michael Trigg, and there's two young guys that go four deep in that room as well. And the wide receiver position, the same way, they kept adding talent on top of talent on top of talent with a chance to be really, really good. And it's just Lane Kiffin building up that 85, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, yeah. Don't give up on Jalen Knox or Braylon Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear a lot about those guys. They were both injured last year. Mm-hmm. So if they come back to true form, that's just more depth.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't see how anybody couldn't be thrilled that's been an Ole Miss fan for a long time because, like you said, we're stacked.
Mm-hmm.
We might not be Alabama stacked. We might not be Georgia stacked, but we're the best stacked an Ole Miss team has been in my.
Yeah, we're Ole Miss stacked. We really are Ole Miss stacked.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember looking at the talent that the 2008 team had and thinking, it's like, man, this team is pretty loaded. And Coach Orgeron couldn't coach a lick.
No,
and
good recruit.
Yeah. And this team would beat that 2008 team by 3 touchdowns.
Oh, easy.
Mm-hmm.
We've just got, we've got so much talent. Our coaching is better. I really am a huge Golding fan. I went back and looked at film of his whole coaching career, and he makes good adjustments. He works within his system. He works within his players that he's got. I think that's why we added so much depth in certain places on defense. And, Lane Kiffin's going to have the offense. We're going to have a top 10 offense. Mm-hmm. So I think our defense is going to be vastly improved because we're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. That's going to be the big difference between this year and the years that we did the 3-2-6. Just my opinion. I think we're going to get a lot more pressure on the quarterback. I think he's going to use a lot of really good stunts. I don't think we'll see anything major until we start SEC ball, but man, I am so looking forward to it.
Now, the one thing that everybody needs to be wary of, the kind of the Achilles heel on from those Pete Golding defenses when he was at UTSA, was counter flow plays, reverses, screens, counters, stuff like that. Yep. So be on the lookout, hyper glued into how Ole Miss's defense responds when Mercer runs a counter play, when Tulane runs a counter play. Because if they handle that pretty well, the Alabama game might be in really good shape. But if for some reason they struggle with that like they did at UTSA, it could be a problem against a team like Alabama or LSU.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The teams that have the talent on the line and at running back to really make and receiver to make some issues for us. I agree. And I'm not trying to, wear my red and blue glasses, but we also have speed on defense now.
Yeah, so, it's in the name of the show.
Yeah. SEC, you got to have speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're all homers here. And I don't understand why people look at that as a dirty word. No. We are all here to have fun following Ole Miss sports. And if you are not following Ole Miss sports, then I appreciate you watching and helping me get paid.
Yeah, I'm a homer.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. I tell people all the time, Ole Miss is in the name of the show.
Exactly. Some Ole Miss reporters, they try to stay neutral. And that's what I love about our perspective. So you don't have to be neutral.
Yeah.
You can be the biggest homer in the world, and that's me.
Yeah. I interviewed this morning for a Friday night interview with Brad Logan. Brad Logan obviously has a little bit different perspective on wide receivers, but it's worth hearing it. It doesn't matter if you agree with it. It's worth hearing it because somewhere in the middle of all these perspectives that I'm providing for people is the truth. And we don't know until we get all the perspectives.
Oh, dude, I forgot one thing.
Oh,
I can't even think of the kid's name now. Aiden Williams, is that right?
Yes, the wide receiver.
Oh yeah, I heard he's the real deal too. I
Yeah.
forgot all about that.
Yeah, the video this morning that David Eckert did in the interview, the whole segment on there is basically Aiden Williams is a dude.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that. They said both those kids got NFL wrote all over them.
Yeah.
Oh,
now the question,
kids, that's pretty good.
The question is, which number one Ole Miss receiver that has worn number one, where will Aiden Williams fit on that list?
Oh, good.
That is the question.
Yep, and only time will tell. But I mean, those guys that have went before him, Treadwell, Brown, Mingo. Let me tell you, he's in. He's in good company, but he's rightfully in good company.
And also, we talk about the number one thing at Ole Miss, and they act like it started with Laquan Treadwell. Hey, I remember Willie Green.
Oh, God, I do too.
Yeah, I think Willie Green needs a little bit of props for wearing number one and kind of starting that tradition, because I don't remember a number one before Willie Green.
Right.
Yeah. But
John Darnell's from Corinth, so that's that was the QB. Man, he had an arm. Goodness gracious. But it's quite a tradition, and you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just so happy. Got past this old cancer battle. Had my first CT scan yesterday. Hopefully it comes back good. And I didn't get to go to a game last year, man, because my immune system was down, and I'm gonna try to make every one I can make.
Yeah, good for you, man. Good for you. Actually, I understand. I hope everything on the CT scan goes well, because you get to learn what I live with now, and that is scanxiety. It is the worst thing in the world after you get a scan and you have to wait for 2 weeks to get the results.
Yep. And that's my new normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I just, it is, I hate to use this cliche, but it is what it is. We just gotta keep going forward, man. Put our nose to the grindstone.
Yep. That new normal. What is it from Bull Durham? Know your cliches.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every dayers tomorrow, the Locked On Ole Miss podcast returns in the morning. We will continue to talk about fall camp, risers, movers, shakers, all of that stuff. We will have you covered. We also will have some of the best opinions in and around Ole Miss sports to get their perspectives as well. So that should be pretty cool. Anyway, Tom, thank you very much for stopping by. And, man, hotty toddy, man.
Hotty toddy.